I feel like causing some problems today, so it's time for another Genshin video. I am well aware of how controversial my Genshin takes are, but hear me out and maybe, just maybe, you'll agree with me in some regard, okay? Because I have heard so much slander and have seen so many videos of people who simply just do not understand the premise of Natlan or even the archon Mavuika. People say that she is a badly written character or cause them to quit the game, and this is, to me, it just doesn't sit right. Because many see her as this flawless leader who is perfect at everything she does, but in my opinion, they fail to see the subtleties of her character. And in reality, she fails a lot, and nearly fails at everything. But it is her support system that catches her when she falls at every turn, holding her steady on this pedestal she stands upon as archon. She is not the fearless and stoic leader that everyone in the community seems to see her as. She is very much human. Allow me to prove this to you. Because this is You Are Wrong About Mavuika, Analyzed and Explained. Okay, first of all, before you call me a Hoyo shill, do you honestly think that someone with a Shinyen profile picture and a Dia background is a Hoyo shill? There is also this video, by the way. God forbid I talk about her again, but that's besides the point. This story is not perfect in the slightest, and it has a bunch of issues, but I still liked it. This story is a showcase of how a mortal human archon can be just as revered and respected as an immortal one like Zhongli or Raiden. But at the same time, she also has many mirrored aspects with Furina, with one key difference. Both are humans who inherited a burden that put them way out of their depths, and they are woefully in over their head. But at the same time, they hold the future of their nation in their hands. And what if I told you that these two are the exact same character placed into two different cultures? Both are resilient and endured 500 years of suffering, slowly losing their grip on who they are and forgetting what they even do it for. So why does Furina shine in such a different light as a character than Mavuika? Well, this is because of Furina's vulnerability. She on many occasions cries or breaks down and wallows in self-doubt, a stark contrast to Mavuika, who never even appears shaken. But what if I told you that it has nothing to do with the character themselves, but with the nation they are in and the culture? Furina is from a nation of judgment and trial where one person is isolated and scrutinized publicly in front of the waiting eyes of the jury, creating an atmosphere of there is only you versus your opponent, an honorable duel to decide fate. You are alone, and if found guilty, you alone are guilty and sent to the fortress of Meripede alone, isolated from the rest of Teyvat. Whereas in Natlan, the entire culture is fixated on the statement no one fights alone, where even if everyone is arranged into separate tribes, the tribes often unite and throw parties together and fight together in the pilgrimage, where they fight against the abyss and only one in a team of 5 needs to return alive to save everyone. Unity and reliance on others is the culture of Natlan. This nation quite literally exists because of this unity. And it is this unity that acts as a safety net that catches Mavuika more often than you think. Because if you think about it, Mavuika's entire plan was flawed from the start. She kept secrets that ended up backfiring. She nearly gets the hero she waited 500 years for killed. And her entire plan nearly failed. But each and every time she fell onto a trampoline that catapulted her back on track. Something Furina never had. Let me explain. Even before the events of our journey through Natlan, Mavuika is trying to stay steadfast in her resolve from within the sacred flame, symbolized by her riding her bike through an endlessly repeating desert. She starts off confident, as we know her to be, but as the years progress, she starts to lose herself. She starts to weaken, and she even forgets what she's fighting for, and she ends up stopping. And look at her face here. She's defeated. There is no light in her eyes. She's so despondent that she can't even recognize her beloved sister. But it is only after her sister reminds her of what exactly she's fighting for that the light returns to her eyes and her resolve is restored. She was falling, but her sister caught her. This was not Mavuika's mental fortitude that did this. This was her being supported and carried in her moment of vulnerability. Something that is repeated more than once. There is not a single moment where the people of Natlan turn their backs on Mavuika. And that is where she draws her strength. The only reason why she was able to drive back Gasoisoth the first time was because the heroes granted her their power. Yes, Mavuika is strong, but she would crumble if it wasn't for the fact that no one fights alone. This is something that is sprinkled into every single Mavuika interaction. Remember when she fought Capitano? Whose weapon was she using? That's right, she didn't use her own claymore. She used Kenichi's. Why? Because she once again doesn't fight by herself. The unity of Natlan and the people's trust in her is her sword, quite literally. And we know that in Tevat, the power of people's united prayers is a power that can topple anything. The manifestation of people's desires is a vision, the very thing that grants superpowers in the first place. We learned that back in Inazuma. This is also why Xbalanque declared her the winner, because her power is different and is not even exactly hers. But Mavuika isn't just saved through her people's faith in combat. Her plan was also nearly brought to ruin by her own recklessness, because in sending Xilonen, Citlali, and us to stop Capitano from awakening the Lord of the Night, Xilonen was nearly killed, who is arguably the most important of the heroes. But who saved her? It wasn't Mavuika. It was Capitano, the guy who was poking holes in her plan and was inevitably right from the very beginning. You see, Mavuika intended to defeat the Abyss, but this wouldn't have saved the ley lines of Natlan, nor would it stop the Abyss from returning in the future after she died. She confirms this herself, that she would only be able to strengthen the Lord of the Night for another 200 or 300 years, which in the long run only stalls for time and accomplishes nothing. Once again, she would have failed, but once again, the unity of Natlan shines through as Capitano offers a better solution that also saves the ley lines. So our once thought infallible Pyro Archon is bailed out in a combat and story sense. But what if I told you that she was also bailed out in an emotional sense? Because the Sunset trailer was just a peek. It took more than this to sustain her, because in the first battle against the Abyss, she didn't even make it back on her own. Tupac carried her to her throne with his dying breaths. Once again, the people of Natlan are carrying her on their back. And before passing away, Atea made sure to give Mavuika her pendant, indicating that she will always be there for her. And Atea isn't the only one either. Mavuika actively kept the relics of her people piled up in her office and then used it as fuel to save us from the Night Kingdom. Nothing she does is of her own strength. And that is what makes her different from Furina. Mavuika is still a human, but her people's faith in her is her safety net that catches her at every stumble and carries her to her throne. And one more thing, this was presented as a bit of a throwaway, but I feel like it is actually important. Because before going to fight the Abyss one last time, Mavuika confines herself to her room, isolating herself, as Mualani was planning to throw a party. And it is Mualani that makes sure that Mavuika is included and involved. In the most paramount moment, the calm before the storm, Mavuika nearly separated herself from her main source of power. And this wasn't the only time she does this either, because she also slipped away during the final celebration to sacrifice herself, which was a mistake that I mentioned earlier, but her support system was so strong that we found her anyway and got there before she even thought we would. And yet again, her people save her because no one fights alone. Furina was alone, which led to her shattering mentally, leaving her with trauma that nearly led to the downfall of Fontaine. But Mavuika was never alone. In every instant of weakness, she was supported. It was not by her own power that she succeeded, but by the combined efforts of the Natlanese people. This is why the contrast of Fontaine's human archon clashes so hard with Natlan's, because they are in essence the same. 500-year-old humans left with a burden they inherited from a predecessor predecessor, yet they have to triumph against impossible odds to save their nation. They are the same, but their circumstances are polar opposite. Which brings me to a few other criticisms I've heard. That Mavuika doesn't show emotion and that she's out of place into that. Well, as for the first one, this comes down to culture. The Natlanese people fight the Abyss, a force that uses whatever means possible to defeat them, even disguising itself as their family members to throw them off. And since fighting this threat is something Natlanese people have been doing for hundreds of years, it makes perfect sense that they'd be battle-hardened and stoic. Mavuika isn't like Furina in that regard. Queens never cry. This despondent, defeated look is the most you're gonna get out of her. But in contrast, she never fails to show how much she appreciates her support system, including her sister. Do you know how rare it is to get an I love you in a Hoyo game? Characters, for some reason, really shy away from the L word. Also, I'm gonna keep hammering this home, the last thing Hine says to Mavuika is I believe in you. Again, that's the power system at work. But I think I've made that clear for now. Because I want to address the Natlan technology complaint that I feel is completely unfounded. Now, this is something that has been established for literally the entire game, that I'm surprised that people are missing. The bishop/dragon race that Celestia took down before humans ran the world was way more advanced than humans are in this present day. The tech we have now is nothing compared to what they had. And it just so happens that Natlan having technology that we've never seen before makes sense, because we've been told multiple times that humans repurposed and reverse engineered dragon technology. So we now have guns that fly and motorcycles that fly. But not only that, it's also explained why they're able to do this, because phlogiston exists, and it runs through Natlan on tap. These people have what is basically organic rocket fuel running through rivers and crystallized in mountains. So their land is filled to the brim with technology that is the most advanced in the world, on top of a power source that is also the most efficient. And you think they wouldn't be advanced? This random NPC named T'Pol created his own Celestia. Natlanese people are insane. It's not just the main cast. Play the story quest, please. This place is bigger than the Jade Chamber. You know why? Because Liyue doesn't have that many rocks that can just defy gravity, but Natlan is basically made out of it. And they have this whole air current thing that is also phlogiston related. Same with Fontaine. Once again, Numa and Osea energy are their unique power source, and they have mechas. Scaramouche's false god form is a Megazord that ran off of a Gnosis. The power source determines how advanced the technology can become, which is very realistic. This is why Mondstadt is so behind technologically. Everything they have runs off of wind, when Natlanese people have jet fuel. So yeah, thus the Archon has a flying bike. I don't think that's out of place. Her outfit is though. Mavuika is never beating the biker suit Himiko allegations. Her outfit being like this makes absolutely no sense to me. To be honest, it really clashes with the message Mavuika's character is trying to send. If she dressed more like her people, like she did in the past, the message of unity would come across way easier. Her outfit is entirely inexcusable, especially when we see the outfit she used to wear in the past. Every Archon matches the general style of the nation, but the Archon that is supposed to be the most in tune and supported by her nation. Go figure. This is like doing 700 flips in the air only to land on your neck. Like, if you did all that, how did you mess up the landing? If you wrote this story about how no one fights alone, why is Mavuika's outfit fighting alone? I say all of that to say this. Natlan has issues. This is not a flawless story, but I do not believe that Mavuika herself is the issue, and I feel like she is really overhated, especially judging by how loved Furina is, even though she was hated at the beginning too. And of course, Natlan isn't over. Mavuika still has the Gnosis that the Tsaritsa's going to get. So in the end, I just hope that this video helped you understand more of the subtleties hidden behind the surface of this story, because I am enjoying it so far, and I want you to as well. I've seen so many videos on how people have missed the entire point of Natlan and the hashtag stand with Mavuika, and how important that is. That's even tied into it, because again, that gives her power. It's been in front of us the whole time. Mavuika and Natlan's support of her is in contrast to Furina's isolation and abandonment. both are humans with archon duties that have the exact same problem, but only one has a support system that loves and cares about her. And this story shows just how powerful that can be. Mavuika isn't infallible or flawless, and her plans don't always work, but her people are willing to give all they have to make sure that they do, and fill in the gaps that she has as a character to make sure that no one fights alone. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.